Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about these really short barrel 9mm AR style rifles. We're going to be talking about, is there a self-defense benefit to this, or is this purely a plinking toy? Is it just a novelty, or might this have some benefit, in self-defense situation? A lot of times people think of, home defense. They're thinking, hey, if I use a shorter gun, I can move around a little bit more comfortably. The problem with one that is this short, and what I got here is it's got a 4-inch barrel, and then it's got a 2-inch linear compensator for a total of 6 inches, which you kind of need a minimum of 6 inches because you got to have some place to put your hand. So the problem with something that's this short is that it's really easy to slip your hand past the muzzle and shoot yourself in the hand, okay? Now the question might become, why, how about a pistol, right? Why can't you do that with a pistol? With a pistol, normally you grab it like this, you go to full extension. It's kind of hard to reach in front of the, in front of the barrel because of the way we typically practice shooting a pistol. Now I have seen some, several people over the years from Eastern Europe where they try to hold the gun like this. I guess it's an Eastern European thing, and there's definitely a risk of their hand going in front of the muzzle, and they generally have very bad control. So whenever I'm training such people, I teach them to hold the gun the way you're supposed to hold the handgun. Okay, but the point is that with the handgun, it's it's really, if you're holding it like this full extension, you're not gonna get your hands in front of the muzzle. That's not how we hold something like this, right? We're not holding it like this, right? If you were holding like this, yeah, I can't reach in front of the muzzle, but something like this, we're gonna typically hold like this and bring it in. Right now, ATS says that you're not supposed to shoulder this, but they have made an exception for occasional shouldering, occasional touching, and that kind of stuff. Well, in a home defense type of situation where your life is at risk, yeah, you need to take the most accurate shots that you can take. You got to make sure that you shoot the threat and you don't shoot anything else. So I definitely think that would qualify as that exception where you can shoulder this so you can get those more accurate shots, okay? That being said, is this the best option? What are the risks involved with this? And like I said, the risk is that your hand is going to slip in front of this. The way I deal with that, or to kind of, I try to prevent that when I'm practicing with this, is I will take a pistol light and I will mount the pistol light up here, and this sort of functions as a hand stop, and obviously I now have a light on the gun. The reason, let me show you these other guns. Other guns, what I typically do is I put a 3-slot rail over here so that I can kind of feel that, and I know where my hand is supposed to be, right? I can feel that even in the dark. I can feel that, and I know where I'm supposed to be at. That's the benefit that I get with the light on this. Now the problem with this is because this has the linear compensator, it's basically the linear compensator is really wide on this, and it does not allow me to make use of the M-LOK, the M-LOK slot that I have here. So I cannot set this up the way I have all my other ARs set up. So this is really, this is kind of like a standard thing for my ARs. I have that there. It's a really light hand stop, where I can feel it. So that's kind of like a standard thing, right? So all my ARs have this 3-slot, this 3-slot rail here, so I can feel where my hand is. Well, obviously, this also functions as a back. You can basically mount this on a bipod at some point if you want. But I can't do it on this one. To do it on this one, I would have to remove the factory. The factory linear compensator that's on here, that's about 2 inches, and I'd have to replace that with something that's thinner, but also it would have to be the same length, because I don't want to put like just a standard like a standard bird cage here, because a standard bird cage would kind of stop like right there. So if I'm putting my hand over here, my hands are kind of past the exit point of the bullets, right? So that's why you got to make sure that you have something that goes all the way to the end over there. I think that the linear comp that they have on this, usually it's very useful if you're shooting a 5.56. In fact, it's almost necessary because otherwise it's insanely loud, very uncomfortable to shoot. But on the 9mm, I mean, usually your pistols are 5-inch barrels anyway. You know? So 9mm doesn't really need a linear comp. I think the only reason why they put this on here is because they needed a reason to extend the rail so that you could put your hand on here. So what I do is I put a light on here, so that light kind of functions as a hand stop. And let me show you guys how it looks. Get behind the camera. So when I get behind the camera, so it's kind of like the front sight post on an AR. So it's really not in the way. Works really good. So that's why I like having that light there. It saves me the trouble of having to add, you know, even on these AR, right? On this AR. I mean, if I wanted to put a light on this gun, I would put it the same way. That's why on this, I put my flip-up sights in the back over here, right? So I've got I do have the benefit of the backup sights. And what I do is I leave this spot open up here so I can put a light up there if I decide I want to shoot this at night. So now obviously with this gun, because it's a little bit longer, I don't need the light to stop my hand. Basically, as I hold this, it's kind of, this has the 10-inch. There's a 10-inch barrel. So 10 inches is I think if you're gonna have a short-barreled rifle or an AR pistol, I think 10 inches is kind of the optimal, because it's just, you know, it's long enough that you can't go past it, and you have the benefit, not so much the benefit of being able to maneuver easily around the house, because you know, I mean, I'm very comfortable with this. If I need to shorten this up, I can bring it here. I can bring it here. I also have something that I can muzzle punch, right? So this can be a weapon in and of itself. So I definitely prefer using a full-size AR for home defense. But the benefit of the shorter barrel is really for women or people that are really small, because for most women, you know, even if I collapse the stock, the barrel a lot of times is a little too heavy, and they really can't hold it up there, so it starts getting a little bit heavier. It really does help though if you have, like, this is a skeletonized rail. See how it has all the cuts, so really lighten this up. So this is kind of at the point where a lot of women can sort of comfortably shoot this for an extended period of time. But definitely, same women, I'll put them on this AR that has the 10-inch barrel, and they are so much happier with this gun. They really like this. So at one point I said, hey, let's try, because this has a 10-inch barrel. I said, hey, let me try one that has a 7.5-inch barrel. All right, so this has a 7.5. I added this later on, like within a week, right? So when I tried this with the 7.5-inch barrel, what I found is I'm watching people shoot, and I'm seeing that their hand was kind of like creeping up closer and closer to the end of the, you know, to the end of the barrel. It was kind of hanging off, because remember there was a bird cage there, so the bird cage came up to here. So I saw that fingers were sometimes kind of hanging like this. So that really made me really nervous when I was training people. So that's why I bought this linear comp, added it to the end, and kind of brought this out to like whatever, 10, 11 inches, whatever this is. And now I find that I feel a lot more comfortable, less chance of people getting their hands past the end of the muzzle, because that's like really hard to reach out. Okay, so that's like definitely a thing I've seen. If you go too short, there's a chance that you're gonna end up past that muzzle, especially if you get in a grappling type of situation, right? If you get into a grappling situation, you know, where you're pulling the gun back, you know, it's really easy for your hands to slide past it. Whereas something like this with a 10-inch barrel, you know, I think it's a little safer from doing that. Okay? Like I said, I prefer 16-inch, so I want to be able to get all the way back here. You know, I can use my elbows to wrestle if I need to. So for me, this is awesome. This is what I use for home defense. Full size, I mean, not a 9mm, but a 5.56 full size 16-inch barrel. I find that works the best. For women, I find ARs with 10-inch barrels work pretty good. And then when you start getting into shorter and shorter ones, you run that risk of your hand going in front of the muzzle. Let's take a couple of shots at this. You guys can see how this works with the loading procedure. We're going to lock this open, put our safety on. Okay. I mean, it's fun to shoot. I like it. The only realistically, the only self-defense benefit I could see to this is, I don't know if you're doing, I don't know, like bodyguard work or something, and you're in the car where you can collapse this, put a single point sling on this, right? And with a single point sling, you can basically keep this inside of your jacket, right? So it's concealed. So now you've got the accuracy of a short rifle, basically. That's the only, realistically, I think that's the only benefit I can imagine to something like this in the real world. But I think 10 inches is kind of like that sweet spot where people, people need a shorter barrel, primarily for the purpose of they need a lighter rifle that's not so front heavy. 10 inches seems to be like the perfect place. And I'm a full-time firearms instructor. I travel all over the Northeast. I have like trained thousands of women, really, and I find that that's really the best place for them, for most of them to be. A lot of them are really comfortable with the 16. If I see that the woman is comfortable with the 16-inch AR, I will definitely put her into this because both she and her husband or boyfriend or whatever can both use the same gun. Also, depending on different situations down the road, wherever she's at, she will most likely have access to a full-size AR rather than an AR pistol. Okay, so let's talk about why I use 9mm ARs rather than just standard 5.56 ARs. The reason is just economy, really. A lot of times when I'm training people, right, I want to train them on both a pistol and a rifle. So with one type of ammunition, with 9mm, I can give them both rifle training and pistol training. So it's really just a matter of economy. Okay, especially like all these 9mm PX9s. These are Palmetto PX9s. Every single one of these. The reason why I got so many of them is because they're just that good for training purposes, right? They get the job done well and economically. But usually what I'll do is I'll train them on the Palmetto PX9s. I'll train them on these Polymer 80 pistols. Basically, it's a Glock clone. And the reason why I use this is because I'm able to put optics on this. All self-defense guns have to have optics, in my opinion. A circle with a dot. And I find that, beginners learn to shoot them better, a lot faster. And I find that experienced people shoot them better under stress. So for me, I'm like completely sold on both rifles and pistols with optics. It's even my carry gun. I mean, I think there's, optics. I mean, it's just, especially in low light conditions, right? Because here's the thing: if it's dark, right, I find that on my pistol I can have night sights, and in daytime I can see the sights, kind of, right? I mean, I say kind of because basically I should be wearing bifocals. So if I'm wearing prescription glasses and I'm just looking, I'm trying to focus on my front sight. Sometimes it can be a little bit hard for me to see the front sight, to focus on it rather. If I wear glasses, like for reading glasses, then I can't see in the distance. So the nice thing about the optic is that I can just wear my normal glasses that I need for distance, and I can look at the target at distance, and then the reticle is on the target, so single point of aim works better for my 50-year-old eyes. Okay, so that's why I train people on 9mm. And what I usually tell people is, okay, now this is basically just for training purposes. The gun that you're going to buy for home defense is going to be an actual AR-15 that shoots 5.56, and some gun that is as reliable as a Glock. Doesn't have to be a Glock. It could be a SIG, it could be an HK. There's lots of other choices out there, but it has to be something that military and police use, that's been tested, and it has to be able to take an optic, something with a circle and a dot. Not just a dot. Dots by themselves can be very hard to find. Something with a circle and a dot. Now, sometimes the issue of over penetration comes up. Sometimes people will say, "Hey, aren't these 9mm ARs a better choice for home defense, especially in a situation where you're living, let's say in a city or in an apartment? Wouldn't that be a better choice if you have over penetration, or if you have over penetration concerns?" And this is something I have actually tested. I have a video in my channel. Just look up penetration tests on barrels. Let me get a barrel for you here. So here's a steel drum. Okay, I did a test where I lined up 7 of these in a row, 15 feet apart. Okay, and I say 15 feet apart because the space between the barriers counts. Okay, so I shot it with a 9mm AR that had a 60. It was a Beretta CX4 rifle, and that had a 16-inch barrel, so the same as that one over there. And I shot 7 of these barrels in a row, 15 feet apart. The 9mm rifle penetrated through 4 of them, and I was able to recover the bullet almost fully intact inside of the 4th barrel. Okay. Then I did the same test with an AR, with an actual AR-15 that was shooting 5.56. That only penetrated 3 barrels. Okay, and when I looked inside of, because it went into the 3rd barrel, but no bullets came out of the 3rd barrel. So basically, by the time it got to that 3rd barrel and it had completely disintegrated, because you have a much smaller 55 grain bullet, right, versus the 115 grain 9mm. You got a smaller bullet traveling at a higher speed, and what I found was happening is it went through the 1st barrel, but when it got to the 2nd barrel, it was already tumbling, right? And as it's tumbling through the 2nd barrel, it's kind of starting to rip itself apart. It got to the 3rd barrel, usually entered it, but never got out of it, and I was able to find like little fragments of lead inside it. Okay, so it had pretty much completely broken up. So but when I did the same test with the 9mm AR, it actually went 4 barrels, and in the 4th barrel it was intact. So penetration-wise, the 5.56 is going to penetrate less because the space between barriers counts. Usually, a lot of times when people do penetration tests, I mean they're just trying to penetrate a single barrier. For example, I got those rims down there at 30 yards, right? 9mm will just bounce off of it, whereas 5.56 will penetrate it. But that's, but after it goes through it, what happens, so yeah, the 5.56 will penetrate it, but after it goes through it, it pretty much has lost all of its energy. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend 5.56 for home defense, and I think that's also the reason why SWAT teams pretty much use 5.56. They used to use like 9mm MP5s. They pretty much have gone away from it. And an MP5 would kind of be similar to this, short like this. Here's the thing. Right now, I pretty much most of the training that I have received is either on full-size ARs and pistols. I have not done a whole lot of training on guns like these, right? So I'm sure that there were certain techniques that were developed, I guess, in the 90s for working with a smaller gun like this, to prevent your hand going from, getting in front of the gun. Most instructors today aren't going to be aware of it because this is just a size that's just not that popular. I got most of my training from mostly vets that came back from Iraq and Afghanistan. So that's where most of my training has come from. I've also gotten some from law enforcement guys over the years. So that's the extent of my training. So whatever people were using MP5s at some point, I haven't had any contact with them. I just so I don't know what techniques they're using. Okay, so if you do want to use something of this size, you pretty much have to seek out people that have had that kind of training, so they can basically tell you how you're supposed to work with a gun that's this short and not get your hand in front of the barrel. So anyway, those are just my thoughts on this. I am not saying that this is the one and only way. I'm just giving you guys some things to consider. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you're not a member of my channel, subscribe, hit the bell button so you get some notifications. I'll talk to you guys soon.